As we pull away, please give your doors a little bit of a jiggle. If you're in one of those last two carts and you happen to have a medical emergency, you're going to reach above your head, press and hold that yellow strip. If you're in the cart right here behind me, you don't have that, you're just going to wave your arms like crazy or tap on my window to get my attention. Now, I'm sad to say that if you drop anything over the side of the tram while we're on tour, I am not able to stop and pick that up. Just let me know once we're at the station where you may have dropped it. We'll try to have somebody grab that for you. Now, I will stop so that you may stand for a better view or photo, but if the tram is actively moving, please remain seated for your own safety. Now, as we're heading out on this beautiful holiday bumble, we're going to talk a little bit about ethology, which is the study of animal behavior, the relationship between predators and their prey. But I'm also a little bit of a dork, so I might throw in a few fun facts as well. Now, on the driver's side, in our East African habitat, you can see some of our African buffalo on the hillside. We also have part of our tower of giraffe right here by us. Some of them at the feeding station. Now, giraffes are what we call browsers, meaning they prefer to eat the leaves off the trees and shrubs, even little tiny ones trying to reach up there and grab that branch. Now, they're going to use their very long tongues. For adults, it's going to be about 45 centimeters or up to 18 inches in length to wrap around that branch and strip those leaves off. Now, you may notice the first part of their tongue is a dark blue or black. That's because of the high level of melanin. Now, that melanin is going to help protect them from sunburn, but also from the thorns on their favorite food. We do return this way as we come back to the tram station, so we're going to keep on heading out and see what other things we're going to find. On the passenger side will be our lagoon habitats. We have some of our African crowned cranes in this first habitat. And then in the next one, we have our flamboyance of greater flamingos. And no, we don't call them greater flamingos because they're better than the other flamingos. It's because they're the largest of the flamingo species. Now, a fun fact about flamingos, they're one of the only birds that produces milk. Both the male and female flamingo produce a very pink milk in their crop that they'll then regurgitate and feed to their young. Now, as we head through our first gate, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for coming through one of the two front doors here at the Safari Park. Our other front door being our world-famous San Diego Zoo, which is located in Balboa Park. Together we make up our San Diego Zoo's Wildlife Alliance, which is an international non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring that all life thrives, from the smallest beetles and insects all the way up to the largest mammals. We do that by working in 8 different conservation hubs around the globe. Today, though, we're going to concentrate on 2 of those hubs. Our Southwest Hub, which will surround us all here in Southern California, and then my personal favorite, our African Savannah Hub. Now, on the passenger side, we have our Nikita Khan Rhino Rescue Center. It's home to 10 southern white rhinos, 6 of which are females. With these females, we're working to bring back their close cousin, the northern white rhino, from the brink of extinction. As it stands today, there are only 2 northern white rhinos remaining on this planet. They're both females, mother and daughter, originally from the Czech Republic, but they now live in Kenya. Now, because those 2 females can no longer reproduce, the northern white rhino is functionally extinct. Fortunately for us, though, we have genetic material on property at our frozen zoo, and our scientists are working to create embryos with that material. The goal being that once those northern white rhino embryos are considered viable, some of them could be implanted into some of these southern white rhino females, and then they could act as surrogate moms. Now, long term, ideally, we'd love to have a large enough crush of northern white rhinos that have been born here at the park that we might even be able to begin to repopulate the wild. As you can see, white rhinos, they're enormous animals. On average, they're going to weigh about 2,000 kilos, which is more than 4,000 pounds. So what do you think is a predator for a rhino out in the wild today?
Human.
Well, it's us, humans. We are the primary predator for rhinos in the world today because we are poaching them for the most ridiculous of reasons, and that's for their horn. Now, why do I say ridiculous? Well, because a rhino horn is made up of the same thing as our hair and our fingernails, and that's a protein we call keratin. Now, there are people across the world, though, that believe that rhino horn holds some sort of medicinal, magical, mythical value. But no, that is absolutely not true. Rhino horn has about as much medicinal value as your or my fingernail. Now, as we head into our South African habitat, first thing you're going to see on the passenger side will be our bird marsh. We have two different types of pelicans here, the great white and the Dalmatian. We also have a couple different types of vultures. Up in the back there, you're going to see a very dark vulture with a pink head. That's the largest vulture in Africa, the lapid-faced vulture. The vulture with a little bit of a lighter, whiter colored feather pattern with a light colored head and neck, that would be a Ruppel's vulture. Now, Ruppel's vultures have the distinction of being the highest recorded flying bird, flying at about 36,000 feet. Over here on the driver's side, you're going to see a very large light tan spiral horned antelope. These are a couple of our female elands. Now, believe it or not, a male eland is going to be about 2 feet taller than this female and weigh about 1,000 pounds more. Because they're the largest antelope in Africa, they don't have many predators. It's pretty much only a large clan of hyenas or a pride of lions that would go after an eland. Now, on the passenger side, you'll see some pretty little tan antelope. These Soemmerring's gazelle will use their tan back, white belly counter shading to camouflage into the arid rocky regions of northern Ethiopia. That'll help protect them from their main predator in the wild, the leopard. Now you'll notice we have elands scattered across the hillside because they're so large they don't need to stay together in a tight-knit herd. That's opposed to these chocolatey brown antelope that we see all laying sort of cattywampus on the grass here. These are our sable. Now, sable have an incredibly high flight drive, which is why everybody's facing a little bit of a different direction. This way, everyone's keeping an eye out from every which way for any threat that might come their way. First sign of a threat, they're going to bolt. Now, of course, they don't have predators here at the park, but it's a strong natural behavior for them. And then we have these tiny little light tan antelope with the dark stripe down their side. These are the national animal of South Africa, the springbok. Now, they might be small, which means pretty much everything will try to predate upon a springbok. But they're really fast. Not only do they run fast, but they do this thing we call pronking. They put their nose down, they round their back, they straighten their legs, and then they're going to boing 11.5 feet up and across. Because they can't intimidate the predator with their size, they're trying to intimidate them by showing off how athletic they are. They're basically saying, can't you see how fast I run and how high I jump? You'll never catch me. Now, as we pull forward, you're going to be able to see our tower of Maasai giraffe. We have one of the females over here by herself across the way, standing by this tree. The rest of the tower is just a little bit further ahead. Now, this very tall, dark, handsome male, this is our breeding male. We like to call him Go On. Now, Go On's maybe a little tired because for about the last 5 days he's been stuck like glue to one of the females who had been in estrus. Now, as long as that female was in that state of estrus, meaning she was available for breeding, he never left her side. He didn't want to miss any opportunities for breeding. But now that he's a little bit rejoined this tower, I'm wondering if that female is coming out of her estrus cycle. Now at the top of the hill here on the passenger side, you might just get to see dune. I know it's not the best view, but we do have a dromedary camel up there. He's a retired ambassador animal, but he blends in so well to that rocky backdrop.
Oh, I saw it.
As we head up the hillside here, we are transitioning to our Central African habitat. Now while we're on the hill, I am not able to stop, but I will try to slow down to get you as good a view as possible of anything that we might see. This is one thing about the animals having such large habitats here at the park. They do move around a lot throughout the day. Sometimes they're in great places to see them. Sometimes they're in not the best places to see them. Now if you look at the crest of the hill across from us, you'll see a light tan antelope with a black and white face mask with very thick curved horns. That's one of our bachelor roan antelope. Now a fun fact about the roan antelope, they're one of the only antelope species that will stand their ground against a predator. They're quite large and equine-like. Well look, all our roan are in the water. My goodness. Now while we're looking at these roan antelope in the water, take a look at the black and white face mask they have. You notice the black marking on these animals goes above, across, and below their eye. The easiest way to tell an animal is what we call diurnal. Having those black markings around the eye will help absorb the sunshine and help keep the sunlight out of their eyes. Now over here on the passenger side, right by the water's edge on the island, you'll see a small orange antelope. This is a female Sitatunga. And no, we do not put her on the island. She swims her way out there. Sitatungas are made for living in wet, swampy areas. Their little hooves have a little bit of a sway to them, which helps them walk on top of the mud instead of sinking down into the mud. And then, of course, I know you've all already seen our two bachelor Grevy zebra right here. Now, the Grevies are the largest of the zebra species, but sadly, they're also the most endangered. If you notice the black and white stripe pattern that they have, this is what we call disruptive marking or disruptive coloring. That's because when they're standing very close together, all those black and white stripes tend to create an optical illusion, and they all kind of meld into one, especially for predators who only see in black and white or grayscale. Which is why a herd of dazzles herd of zebra, is referred to as a dazzle. I love it when the animals are all down at the water's edge. Now under this first palm tree, you might not have the best view, but did you see some small tan chestnutty antelope across from the tram station when you were waiting in line? Those are female Nyala. Now this shaggy dark fellow with the bell-shaped horns, this is a male Nyala. As you can see, they look nothing alike, and that is what we call sexual dimorphism, when the male and the female of the same species do not resemble each other. at the feeder in between these trees right here on the driver's side, you're going to see a small orange antelope. This is a Ugandan cob. Now, that orange really stands out for those of us that see in color vision. But if you're a predator who's only going to see in black and white or grayscale, that orange will come across as the same tone as the green in the grass. So the strategy of survival for the cob is to freeze, stand completely still, hope that they blend in so well to the bushveld backdrop that the predator never sees them. Now, while we have a moment, I'd like to point out all of this open space you see around us here at the park. We have 1,800 acres on property, and we leave just about half of that open to our natural southwest hub. It's made up mostly of California coastal sage scrub, which is an important habitat for many different animals. From little things like bunnies, squirrels, lizards, birds, snakes. We might even see some mule deer while we're out and about today. And then all the way up to predators like bobcats, coyotes, and even mountain lions will call the Southwest Hub home. But as it stands today, there's a little less than 30% of it remaining in the areas where it originally occurred. And that is a problem that faces animals all across the world today, loss of habitat. Now in the little valley here, you're going to see some very light, almost grayish antelope with incredibly long straight horns and black and white markings. These are Fenstock. Now they're also known as southern oryx. Now, as you can tell, the coloring of these animals will blend in very well to sandy, dry, duny regions of places like the Kalahari or Namibia. Now, these animals have adapted so well to those dry environments that they're then able to get all the moisture they require just from the plants and the food that they eat. And that allows them to go extended periods of time without ever drinking water. Looks like we're going to have a beautiful view of our breeding herd of African buffalo. Now the cool thing about buffalo, they don't camouflage. They don't need to camouflage. They're going to actively defend each and every member of this group. I'm going to pull around so we don't have the fence in our way. Now if those buffalo thought we here in this tram were a threat, the entire herd would stand, turn, and face us. They'd lift their noses, they'd smell the air. They'd try to intimidate us into backing down or opening up the comfort zone. If we didn't do that, they're not going to run away. They would actually move towards us. If we still don't give them the space that they want, they would eventually charge us. Buffalo are very well known for returning to try to rescue one of their own that might have been taken down by a predator. Now on the driver's side, we have another view of some of our eland. And then on the passenger side, to the right of the tree in the shade with his head down, is a male waterbuck. We have a herd of female waterbuck down in our South African habitat, and he likes to keep an eye on them. And then on the left-hand side of the tree is one of his best friends. It happens to be an Asian elk species called a wapiti. And then a little further forward, you're going to see some mountain zebra. These are 3 females. They might look a little different from the grevies. They have a much wider, thicker stripe pattern, especially on those hindquarters. You'll also find mountain zebra in a different region, all the way from Angola through the Karoo and down into the eastern Cape of South Africa. Now we here at the San Diego Zoo's Wildlife Alliance, we do partner with many other conservation organizations around the world. Just a couple of my favorites being the Grevy's Zebra Trust that we work with out of northern Kenya. There's an area called Labarta, and at their last count, they had gotten down to just 305 Grevy remaining in that area due to the fact that they're being outcompeted for food sources by the local domesticated livestock that is being grazed within those national park lands. So I'm partnering with the Grevy Zebra Trust, meeting with the local communities, the National Parks Boards. We've all been working to try to find the best resolution to ensure that there's plenty of grazing area, not only for the wild animals and the zebra, but for the domesticated livestock as well. Now my other favorite group we partner with, it's a group that's based out of South Africa, and it's called Volpro. Volpro is a group that will rescue, rehabilitate, and return to the wild wounded vultures. And I get it, vultures, definitely not the most glamorous bird species, but they really are crucial for a healthy ecosystem. After all, they are known as the cleanup crew of the bushveld, and by them picking clean all those old icky carcasses that are left behind, they're helping keep the disease load low. Not only will that protect the animals that live in those environments, but it's also going to protect all the people living in the local communities that will surround those game reserves and national parks. Now it looks like our Tower of Giraffe is still right here at this end of the habitat. If you look on the grassy area in the shade of the tree, you're going to see some fringe-eared oryxes. We just have one of our giraffe left here at this feeding station, but we do have a moment. We'll slowly cruise by so everybody can have a nice up-close view. Now a great way to see all the animals out here in this East African habitat is to make your way on up to Kalima Point. It's a beautiful overview. You'll be able to see not only the East African habitat, but over towards Asia as well. And it's also right next door to where the viewing area is for elephants, now that our Elephant Valley is under construction. We also have some of our male African buffalo grazing up the hillside. They're also known as Dugga boys. That's because they spend a lot of their time in very wet areas, thick riverine habitats. We have 3 of our southern white rhino right here. They're also known as the wide-lipped or square-lipped rhino because of their big, wide, flat, chunky lips. As we turn the corner underneath the tree ahead of us, you're going to see a few more of our southern white rhinos. We do have an enormous crash of them out here in our East African habitat. Oftentimes you'll have an entire group of them just within a few meters of you from Kalima Point, which is why it's always worth making the walk up there. Plus it's right next where elephants are. So as we wind our way back to the tram station, I want to thank you for coming on this bumble with me today. I know it's not possible to talk about everything that we see while we're on tour. So if you have questions or comments, my name is Tanya. I'll be up at the front of the tram once we're parked, and I would love to speak with you. We here at the Safari Park, we really do appreciate you choosing to spend this beautiful holiday Tuesday with us. Just by you doing so, you are some of our allies for wildlife, and you are helping us ensure that all life thrives. Now once I come to a complete stop here at the tram station, you may reach over your passenger side door, grab that black knob, slide that latch forward, and then exit towards the front of the tram. I hope you have a wonderful holiday and you'll come back and see us again soon.